you a little bit racist?
I would say yes. Actually, what I call self-racism.
Those mixed race babies are gorgeous. And it's too late for my kids. They're full Asian.
One of my biggest obsessions in high school was, believe it or not, like to marry a white man, and so I could take his last name and lose my Asian name.
There are even Asians who are proud that they are disconnected from their Asian heritage.
I forget that I'm Asian sometimes.
Typically, people wouldn't think that I'm Asian.
Who make fun of their parents' accents.
Oh, very good man.
Brought shame to the family again.
Hey friends, this is T again with another reaction video. And today we're going to be doing a reaction on white worship in the Asian community. And the YouTuber and the name of this channel is called Hans Y, okay? Now, I am not Asian, as you can see, right? But I do identify with this particular situation because we're having the same issues in the black community. Well, you know, identity crisis, as you may say, right? Well, let me explain. Now, if you like mixed race, like somebody like Drake, for example, right? And then you got somebody like Kendrick Lamar calling you out saying you're not like us, okay? Because back in the day, it didn't matter if you was light skinned. If you just had a drop of black blood in you, you was considered black. But these days, there's a lot of separation going on now. And they basically saying that you're not even one of us. Even though you do got black in your system, now that seems to be an issue. And then you got the whole NFL and the NBA dating, you know, women outside the black race. So, you know, black women got an issue with it. And then they got to down the black men by saying white men are better in some instances. And then the black man saying, you know, he can't take dating black women. That's the reason why he's stepping outside his race or going overseas as a passport, bro. I mean, all kind of craziness going on in the black community right now. But I didn't think that the Asian community had this issue. Maybe towards each other. Like if you got a Filipino or, for example, a Chinese or maybe a Japanese, they might have some issues between each other, right? But not in the same community. I didn't think they had this issue in their own community, basically, right? But obviously they do. They obviously do. It's crazy stuff, man. But I really want to get into this because I think it's very interesting. But before we do, please like, subscribe, and share this video. And don't forget to hit that notification bell. That way you know whenever we come out with new videos, okay? All right, let's get started. All right. Now, when I was growing up, people spoke highly of Asians, right? You didn't know a lot about them because they're kind of secretive people. But the things you do know is always some kind of compliment, right? They're very intelligent. They're very polite. They respect their parents. They do well in jobs. They do well in colleges. All these things, right? Rarely negative stuff here, okay? But it seems they go through a lot of stuff. I don't know if you know who Jake Paul is, right? Years ago, he went to Japan and he went to this place, these woods, where people do self-deletion there, okay? And I think he made some type of joke or something he did, right? He almost got canceled, but originally he didn't get canceled, but he almost did, right? And then you start to hear a lot about a lot of self-deletion going on in Japan. You know, people working too hard, they can't take it, or they lonely or something like that. I think the same thing is happening in China. So it's like you're starting to see, and I think social media might have something to do with that. You're starting to see the insides of what's going on in the Asian community. It's not perfect as they tried to make us believe. They are going through the same stuff as we do. And that's normal because they're human. All of us suffer the same issues, depression, loneliness, you know, all of these things. All of us go through this kind of stuff. And then you look at the fact that we're not multiplying now because nobody's getting married in these countries, right? You know, the birth rate is really, really dropping in China and Japan. So they really having issues. And then it's their inflation and their economics is going down. All kind of problems are happening now. So this perfect picture of Asians just don't exist anymore. And I think that's a good thing because why would you have to walk around thinking you perfect all the time or having that pressure on you to do that, okay? I think they should be able to understand that they're going through the same stuff that all of us do, right? And they should be able to handle it or get support. And that goes back to this particular situation. Because like I say, I thought only black people, the community, black community, were the ones that really suffer these situations when it comes down to white worship or identity crisis, all this other crazy stuff that, the black community goes through. But obviously they're going through it too. So I think this is very fascinating. So let's go ahead and get into this video.
There is a cancer spreading within the Asian community.
I just wish I was white.
A cancer causing people to lose their identity.
Like an Asian denial.
And even start to hate their own race.
Asian men are evil.
That cancer is white worship.
I just really like that milky complexion.
If you want to have gorgeous kids, marry someone not Asian.
Blue eyes, long hair.
White.
Now, this is bad, man. I mean, like, the black community got it bad too, man, but not like this. Now, you can make the argument when for example, if you look at black women, I'm not trying to pick on black women, but they're a better example as to like white worship, if anything, right? Like dyeing their hair blonde. Not saying they can't do it, they can do whatever they want, but I'm just saying there's certain characteristics that black women betray. It seems that they kind of worship white women. Dyeing the hair blonde, putting extensions, making it long and making it all wavy, because that's not naturally our hair color, not unless we're mixed or something, right? But if you get a full-fledged black person, it's going to be the way it is, like Africa or something like that, right? Curly, very curly. But there's little signs like that make, that you would think that, some people might say is black hatred, you're hating yourself or something like that. I don't think so. I just think people just want to try out something different and new and see what works for them. It might be the case in some cases, but I mean, I'm just saying overall, we're not running around talking about we wish we were white kind of a thing, right? We're just not doing that. Not overall, not in the black community. We don't say it out loud. I don't know how people feel, but we don't say these things out loud. Not like this. Not like this. It seems like they really have a problem with being Asian, or at least the people that's saying this stuff. I don't think all Asians have this issue, but he basically saying this is an epidemic. It's starting to grow in the Asian community. So I'm very fascinated. They got me, man. I'm really, really interested in seeing what they got to say here.
Yeah. White worship is an irrational idolization of white or Western features, ideals, cultures, and lifestyles that cause Asians to view themselves as inferior.
I think so. I agree with that, because if you look at plastic surgery, for example, right? The thin nose and the cheekbones and all these other things, certain characteristics that make them kind of look like white people, man. If you look at all these black women right now, they doing all this stuff and they kind of looking like brown white people in a way, and then I'm seeing all these other races doing the same, like Asians. They going to plastic surgery, they're making adjustments, they turning their eyes blue, which I think is crazy. They doing all kind of stuff, man. Like I say, if these aren't things that just naturally happen to you because of some kind of mixture or anonymity, whatever the word is, right? Something just happened, like you got, somehow born with these features. People are actively changing themselves to be a certain way, and it looks like they're trying to look white. And the only ones that don't seem to appreciate looking white are white women. You know what I'm saying? They probably the only ones that don't appreciate it, because sometimes they want to be different. They want to get tanned and they want to get butts and all these other things, and big lips and all this kind of stuff, which is characteristic that falls more on the lines with black people and stuff, right? So the only persons that don't want to be white is white women, okay? But I don't think white men have a problem with being white. You know what I mean? You might find a guy here and there that have an issue with it, but mostly white guys are all right being white. And that's generally just speaking when it comes to black men. It seemed to be more of a woman thing with all these changes and rejections and all this kind of stuff, when they all of a sudden they want to change their race, whether they say so out loud or not. It just so happens these ladies are actually speaking out loud, and it's very interesting. And one thing I noticed also, and this happened in the black community too as well, when you make friends with white people, sometimes black people might try to act white, or whatever you call acting white is, because they want to fit in or something like that. I never had that issue. I like being who I am. I don't see the point of changing that. I don't see it. I don't see the advantage of doing that, right? You know what I'm saying? I'm going to speak the way I'm going to speak. It is what it is. And this is how I talk to everybody, okay? So I never really had an issue with that, right? So, I don't have a problem with dating outside my race either. So I don't have issues with that. But I'm going to be me, though. because I can't keep up whatever this acting white thing is. I really don't know what it is, But I love being who I am around everybody, okay? But it does happen in the Black community, and I guess it also happens in the Asian community as well.
Asian. Today we'll be discussing the factors causing white worship and how to end white worship in the Asian community. That's important because white worship causes Asians to accept and perpetuate racist Asian stereotypes in Western societies.
I'll tell the kids if someone's driving really slowly or just cutting out to say, oh, bloody Asian drivers,
Asian culture is just super patriarchal and misogynistic. Asian culture is just not fun.
So I'm half Chinese, I'm half Scottish.
Yeah.
But luckily for me, I'm half Scottish below the waist.
This over time can cause Asian...
See, that's really cringy, man. When you talk about your culture like that. I mean, look, Black culture, we talk about Black culture when we're ratchet, okay? Like ghetto culture, to me that's a bad thing, okay? When we go around with our pants sagging down, showing our drawers, or, talking in ebonics and talking crazy and stuff like that, or, acting whorish or whatever. We find that disgusting. So it's okay to talk about that because that's bad. But the way they talking about it is being good seem to be an issue. He talking about it being boring being Asian, or driving conservatively or something like that is a bad thing. They make it sound like that's a bad thing or something, right? It's crazy, man. Okay, it's just crazy the way this stuff sounds. So they really, really got it bad, man. They really got it bad. Like I say, I thought Black people had it really bad, but they really, really got it bad, man. To the point, it's almost as though they don't want to be Asian anymore. They want to be everything other than this. So let's continue. I need more information.
To become self-hating Asians who are racist against Asians.
Are you a little bit racist? I would say yes. It's actually what I call self-racism.
Those mixed race babies are gorgeous, and it's too late for my kids. They're full Asian.
One of my biggest obsessions in high school was, believe it or not, to marry a white man, and so I could take his last name and lose my Asian name.
There are even Asians who are...
Yeah, that's bad, man. And this is the thing, from my understanding, I could be wrong here, especially in China, but also might include other Asian countries. The government always tried to make it seem like that their people are more superior. At least that's the impression I got, right? That, they got everything together, they're smart, that their economy is great, their people are superior compared to others. And then a lot of times they don't want to mix. I doubt if you can just go to China and, they don't have a little issue with that. You mixing with other races and stuff, right? They might not have too much of a problem mixing with white dudes, but I think they have an issue mixing with other nationalities. That's including Japan when it comes to China. So it's like, yeah, I lost that point for a second. I was trying to make it, but yeah, but they're always trying to make it seem like they got everything together and they people are superior and all this kind of stuff. But then you come to find out, especially through social media, that they pretty much don't want to be the people that they claim that are better than everybody else. You know what I'm saying? It's almost like they hate themselves. That's what it sounds like. And like I said, I can definitely understand that because I live in the Black community and I've seen a lot of that. A lot of people were kind of almost rejecting who they were or felt like they're going through too much stuff because of their nationality. You hear it all the time. I can't get a job because people are racist towards me. But that doesn't sound like self-hate, though. That's the difference. You know what I mean? They just felt like that they're not getting opportunities because they're Black or something like that. But it's not like I just don't want to be Black at all. I mean, you rarely hear that in the Black community. It does happen, but you rarely will hear something like that. They'll just complain about not being able to get the same privileges other people get or white people get. But it's never like I don't want to be Black anymore kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Even the people that seem to act like white people, right? Like Don Lemon, for a perfect example, right? That's an example of somebody seemed like they act kind of white. That's the example I can use. But he never denounced who he was. He never said he hated being Black. You know what I mean? This is a whole different kettle of fish, man. A whole different thing. Talking about you don't want to be Asian anymore. That's wild.
proud they are disconnected from their Asian heritage,
I forget that I'm Asian sometimes.
Typically, people wouldn't think that I am Asian.
who make fun of their parents' accents,
Oh, very good man. What shame to the family again.
and even argue in support of policies which discriminate against Asians purely on the basis of race. Some will try to find every single excuse to attack Asian culture. I mean, check out this article by an Asian woman who somehow turned a story about 3 Asian women being assaulted by white men into a story about the oppressiveness of Asian culture. But did she mention Western culture? Of course not, even though the majority of crimes against Asian American women are committed by non-Asian men. And if you think that's bizarre, during a tennis match in 2024, an Asian American spectator called Chinese star Zheng Qingwen a yellow banana.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
It gets even worse.
Yeah, if you don't know what a yellow banana is, I saw this in was it Rich Asia? I forgot the name of that movie. What's it called again? Filthy Rich Asians. I think that's what it's called. And they happen to mention about white banana. You know, yellow on the outside and white on the inside. You know what I mean? You think you're white, but you're not, kind of a thing. They explain it in the movie either way, but I understand that reference. And it's very, very interesting, man. It's very interesting that they're basically trying to get away from their own culture. And I wonder if it's because of the pressures of, you know, their families expecting them to be perfect and all this other stuff. Because Asian culture is beautiful. It's a beautiful culture. That's why a lot of people love to visit places like China and Japan and other Asian countries, because they have a beautiful culture. But I think it's the pressures, you know what I mean, for them to be perfect and all this kind of stuff. They like, no, we just want to do what we want to do. If we want to go to rap concerts, we should be able to. If I want to date a white man or a black man or something else, I should be able to make that decision on my own instead of expecting my culture to force me to do it, okay? And that's what I'm hearing, that a lot of parents are expecting them to do certain things. For example, like in China right now, right? They're having difficulties, women finding husbands. They call them, like, I don't know, throwaway women or women past they prime or whatever the situation is, right? So what the parents do is try to hook them up, find husbands for them, because they want to be taken care of as well. You know what I mean? So I think this is the issue. They don't want to be a part of this thing anymore, where they can't be like everybody else. You know, where we can just basically marry who we want, do what we want. I'm not restricted by black culture, even though sometimes you feel like they're trying to get you to be restricted, but I'm not. It's nobody forcing me. My parents never forced me to be black, okay? They never forced me, you know, whatever black culture is. I never was forced to do it. I can do what I want and still be accepted. But I guess in these Asian cultures, that's a difficult thing for them to do. There's a lot of pressure. And I don't think they hate their culture per se. I think they just hate the pressures of expected to act a certain way, if you understand what I'm saying, right? Well, let's continue.
Many Asians idolize Western beauty standards so much, they start suffering from body image issues and poor mental health, to the point of undergoing expensive and unnecessary cosmetic procedures. And some Asians just plain hate being Asian.
No, was that a kid, man, they were doing this to? Goodness knows. Yeah, I heard about that, the flat part, right? Because some Asians don't have that. So they get the surgeries to get it because they think it looks better. So, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, I don't care, but, you know, obviously some of them do. So, but I'm just surprised that this is a kid, though. Do they do this to the kids now? I mean, it's crazy.
Necessary cosmetic procedures. And some Asians just plain hate being Asian. All these harmful behaviors are symptoms of internalized racism, a condition linked to white worship. It's a form of self-hatred whereby Asians believe they are inferior because of their race. Internalized racism destroys people's confidence and self-respect, makes them feel helpless, and even turn against their own race. The worst.
Well, you know, the argument is made that Hollywood have something to do with a lot of the stuff, right? Because the most of the people you see in movies are white people, especially white women, okay? And when you see that, it kind of messes with your psyche. Now, how it affected me is it makes me want to date outside my race, okay? Now, I will date a black woman too, don't get me wrong, but I will also date an Asian woman or white woman or what have you. But that's the most it affected me. I never wanted to have their hair or their skin tone and all that stuff, right? And I'm not saying that those things are bad. It's just I never desired those things. I'm good to go as I am, all right? I have no issues with that. I'm just saying that Hollywood affect people in different ways. So I'm assuming because even though China might keep America stuff out of their country, but still they're still exposed to a lot of that whiteness. Just like we were exposed for many years. I mean, I understand when black people start to fight for we need more representation. I get all that, right? But the stuff they doing is weird. When they start to replace white characters with black characters and stupid stuff like that, instead of just creating their own characters or whatever, right? Or hating on white people. Just do your thing. That's all I'm saying, right? But it has affected so many people. And I think these pro-blacks, it affects pro-black people more. Because they seem to be more angry about the whole situation. You know what I mean? I don't have an issue with white people until, you know, you make an issue with me, okay? But I don't have an issue with them, you know, abroad, okay? But I'm noticing a lot of these pro-blacks do. And I think these white movies and these white singers and all this other stuff make them angry and somewhat jealous. This is my opinion, of course, but this is what I see. And so that's the reason why they all hating on black people. But at the same time, they trying to date them behind the scenes, though. Oh, I hate black people, but I hate white people, but I'm going to marry a white man. You know? And then what was that dude, that pro-black dude? He tried to get with Nancy Mace. I did a video on that too, right? He hating white people, think they racist and terrible people, but then he trying to hook up with her behind the scenes, or at least allegedly. Okay, so it's this, and it really, I think these movies and all this kind of stuff really affected Asian culture. When you oppress people in certain ways, and I don't mean like China putting their foot on people's necks kind of impression. I'm talking about when you put on all these expectations on them. After a while, they're gonna try to rebel, or they're not gonna want to be part of that culture anymore. They're gonna be like, I'm tired of this. And I think if you take them out of this culture and let them do what they want to do, I don't think they'll be walking around talking about I wish I was white kind of stuff. You know what I mean? I don't think they'll do that. I just think that it's all the pressure and the expectations that they have on their shoulders that they just want out, and they'll say and do anything just to get away. That's what I think. But I truly, deep down inside, don't think they hate being Asian. I think they feel like they just need to do something about it. And this is how they express it. Instead of just leaving the culture itself, they doing things like with the eyelids and the blue eyes and all these other things and the nose and everything else, right? So this is what I think. And I think they have this illusion that this stuff gonna make them happier. Maybe temporarily, but I doubt if it makes them happy long term.
Part is, people are often unaware of their own self-hatred and white worship. It's hard to break free from this cycle of hatred. The more Asians experience white worship, the more likely they are to suffer from internalized racism, causing them to behave in ways that result in more white worship and more internalized racism. And we all know that believing you are inferior because of your race will destroy your mental health and the way you see yourself. If we know white worship is so destructive, then how come it's so common amongst Asians?
Yes, Europe is a garden. The rest of the world, and you know very well, Federica, is not exactly a garden. The rest of the world, most of the rest of the world is a jungle.
European countries have a long history of invading other countries, enslaving the natives, and establishing white supremacy. They believed they had racial and cultural superiority, and felt they were superior human beings, civilizing the savage.
Look, they conquered. It is what it is. They developed their country faster than the rest of the world did. They conquered. They won. It is what it is. You just got to accept it. And yes, they're going to feel like they're more superior. If you got a house and then you see somebody living in a cave, you're going to feel like you're more superior and more intelligent than them. You know what I'm saying? Look what we built. Look what we got together. He stands out, man. And most of these outfits that they wearing is probably something that, you know, I don't know if it's part of their culture or what, man, but it kind of looked like something that they might have been given or taught to make or whatever, or they be looking like this. You know, no shirts on and running around. So they definitely gonna feel like they more superior, especially when you dazzle these people with technology. You know, mirrors and alcohol and cigars and all these other things, right? They're gonna want to be a part of that. They're gonna desire that. it is what it is. But see, the problem is they was suppressed. They would not allow them to take the full effect of being what this guy in the middle is. They probably wanted the suits, they probably wanted the hotels, they probably want all the cars and all that other stuff, but they only gave them a very little bit. And sometimes they give them stuff that might damage their culture, destroy it, make them hate each other. So I'm not saying that the bad stuff didn't happen back in those days. I'm not saying that a lot of that stuff don't happen now. But what I'm saying is basically we ain't more in a position to push against stuff like that. It ain't like I have no choice but to accept what this man have to say. Now I can just go my own route. I don't have to, white people say I'm inferior, right? Not saying that I come across this, but let's just say this happened now. I'm not going to accept that. You know what I mean? So it's not going to affect me one bit, But you gotta understand, back in the day, they thought this person was something else because he had, these suits and cigars and technologies and things of that sort. So they thought, oh, this is so amazing and stuff like that. Are we gonna have these things too? But they didn't realize they were there just to take their land and everything else. So it is what it is, okay?
And backward people of Africa, Asia, and the Americas, white supremacy became embedded in society, and colonized people began to associate whiteness with power and beauty. Being white was viewed as ideal, and if you were not white, then you should be as white as possible. For example,
well, there are situations where there were black women who could pass as white, or black men that could pass as white. So they passed because they wanted the same advantages as white people did. These things existed. I don't think even they wanted to reject their blackness. They just wanted certain things in life that they knew they could only get if they were white. But I don't think they hated being black. You know what I mean? I mean, it might have been a few cases when they wished they weren't black. But I think a lot of the time, because when they get older, I'm hearing that a lot of them start to embrace their blackness again. They live as a white person for a long period of time, pretending to be white. But then as they get older and after they had their kids and stuff like that, they start to embrace their blackness again, right? It was like a temporary thing because they wanted to live a certain type of lifestyle. And so I guess it's not, I don't think it's the fact that you just hate yourself completely. I think it's because I look this way, I can't get the same advantages as this other person who looked that way. You know what I mean? I think it's more about that. But then it could be in certain situations, people just don't want to be their culture. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, sometimes you be looking at black people, you thinking, dog, man, I hate being part of the black community. If this is the black community, okay, I hate this because, they're out there robbing and killing people and stuff like that, right? So it's like sometimes you just don't want to be a part of it. But I never wanted to reject my blackness. Never, ever.
Example, in countries like India, British colonial rule solidified the cultural preference for lighter skin and Eurocentric features, while in Latin American countries, a common ideology is you should improve the race by marrying white people. It would also be impossible to discuss white worship without talking about the United States of America. After the genocide of indigenous Americans, a war for independence, and the end of slavery, the USA officially became the land of opportunity.
This is the thing about mixing the races, right? I think when, for example, when black women want to have babies by white men, right? I don't think they want their daughters or sons to come out white. I think they want them to come out just a lighter complexion. We used to call it like good hair or whatever, a certain type of way. But I don't think they want them to come out like blonde white women and stuff. You know what I'm saying? I think they just wanted the tone down the shade, the tone down the features kind of a thing, right? But not completely. And that's on both sides. There's a lot of black people, a lot of white people that want to mix with other races and kind of like make their race a little bit more interesting. You know what I mean? So I've seen a lot of white women want to mix their race with Asians and blacks because they love the way that looks. You know what I mean? Sometimes if they can't do that, they'll just adopt an Asian kid or a black child. Like Sandra Bullock. She got I think 2 black children or something like that. So it's very interesting when it comes down to mixing the races. But I don't think a person, like an Asian person, would get with a white person and hope they kid completely come out like a white kid. You know what I mean? I think they just love the mixture, the way that looks. And that's on both ends. It's not just, minorities. It's also white people too. They like it too as well.
resulted in mass immigration from all parts of the world. Over time, America would grow to become the most dominant superpower in the world, especially in terms of media and pop culture influence. American culture and Western culture by extension became the ideal for the world to aspire to. But while America was said to be this place where everyone had the opportunity to succeed, it was still very much a country rooted in white supremacy. In the late 1800s and early 1900s, Asians were said to be a threat to white society, resulting in murders and hate crimes against Asians. In the late 1900s, Asians were blamed for the economy, resulting in murders and hate crimes against Asians. And nowadays, well, nothing's really changed. I mean, America literally has a $1 billion bill to spread anti-China propaganda.
China, 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 China.
Now, I know he's trying to make it seem like the reason why he's saying all this stuff because he's racist. That's not it. He's talking about the economy. He's basically, right now he's talking about tariffs. Talking about why are we paying so much money to ship our goods to them, but they don't pay hardly anything to ship their stuff to us. It's about economy. He ain't talking about he hate China or he hate Chinese people. He's not saying that, but he's trying to make it seem like, because obviously this person is liberal, because they keep on saying stuff like internalized racism. That's one of those key things where a lot of liberals like to say when you don't agree with them. But he's trying to make it seem like the reason why he's talking about China so much because he hates Chinese people. No, he don't hate Chinese people. He's talking about business here. He's talking about countries being fair. That's what he's talking about. But they trying to make it seem like he hate white people, okay? Hate Chinese people, which is incorrect. That's not the case. Look, I don't know Trump insides. I don't know his mind. I don't know his heart. But as far as what comes out of his mouth, I never heard him say he hate Chinese people. Never heard it. Never heard him say he hate black people. Never heard him say he hate Asian people. Never heard it. Ever. I mean, but they love to paint that picture, though. They love it. Certain people got problems when they growing up. When kids are growing up, they sometimes want to be different. You know, we have the trans situation. We have the gay situation. We have people want to be another race or what have you. People go through things. But then if you give them time, in a lot of cases, they start to accept who they are and just make the best of it, okay? But because we got technology now, we can change things, right? People, instead of just trying to live through these difficult times, they use the technologies to try to change things, thinking it's going to make them happy. And maybe in some cases, they might feel like they're happy, but in a lot of cases, they don't. Because they could have just lived their life as God made them, basically. But, you know, like I say, technology make people thinking, oh, no, I just want to do what I want. It's going to get to the point now when you can be able to see the race and gender of your baby, and you probably can change that, or you that terminate the kid. I mean, technology is a crazy thing, man. And I think when it comes down to the human condition, that you should just let yourself be who you are. You know what I mean? And don't get me wrong, man. I mean, like, I understand certain people feel like if they have a big nose and they feel like they want a smaller nose, they can get it, right? It's just when they get crazy with it, like Michael Jackson did, man, right? He just went too far. I mean, I liked him in Thriller. I liked the way he looked in Thriller. That was fine enough right there. But because he loved plastic surgery so much, he just turned himself to a completely different person. It seems. I mean, it's crazy, man, right? But I do understand certain things when people, you know, do certain things because they want a certain type of look. But some things are to the point when they start to risk their own lives. Like a lot of these BBLs, I heard they're very risky, you know, very risky. You can possibly pass away from that. So I don't understand that extremity, you know, when they go that extreme. It's crazy to me.
And let's not forget how all Japanese Americans were sent to internment camps during World War II, or how the dehumanizing model minority stereotype was forced onto Asian Americans, a constant reminder they can never be an equal American without being white. To this day, Asian Americans still have to overcome additional challenges in always...
No, look, okay, I'm going to speak up for white people right now, okay? And it's not internalized racism either for me saying this, okay? Just to be clear. They dominate in the United States. It's more white people than any other race, okay? They do. So when you go to a country, wherever the race that dominates that country, you got to follow their culture. I can't go to China, you know what I'm saying, and think I'm going to dominate and change their culture. And nowhere in the world you're going to change Chinese culture. or Japan for that matter. They the dominant people there. It's the same here. It's just white people are more dominant here. Of course, they built the country, basically, of course, with the help of black people and other people, but it was based off what they wanted at first, because they the ones that came here. Yes, they took it from the natives. Yes, they did. Okay, they conquered them, basically, right, in the most worst way in the world. But either case, they became dominant in this country. So they crafted it a way where they accepted it. You know, it was similar to England, but somewhat different. But either case, then other people start to flock here. Obviously, they wanted it too. Or you wouldn't be coming from Asian countries or Hispanic countries or whatever to come here. Because obviously, the way they fashioned it, obviously, you wanted part of that. If nothing else, the money, okay? It is what it is. But I'm just saying, right? So it's like all this internalized racism and, oh, you can't be nothing else unless you white and kind of stuff. They dominate the country. So, I mean, it's slowly changing because of all of these illegal aliens coming in now. So that's kind of changing somewhat. But white people still dominate, okay? So you still can be who you want to be still here. You know what I mean? It ain't like white people telling me I can't be a certain way. Now, some people might make the argument, well, you can't get a job because of the way you wear your hair and all this other stuff, right? Yeah, small potatoes. Small potatoes. You get in the military, you're going to have to cut all that off. Just the way the military is. All this expression and all this other crap doesn't work in the military. It doesn't work in certain corporate offices either. They want you to look a certain way, professional. And I don't see a problem with that. If I want the job, then I'm going to do that. I don't need to go there with my African outfits on and all this other crap. That's not necessary. It's not necessary. It has nothing to do with your job. You can do whatever you want to in your personal life, but when you come to the job, you got to be prepared and you got to wear the uniform of the job. You just got to do it. You just got to accept that. Or go to Africa. They'll let you wear all that garb. You know what I'm saying? But guess what? None of them are leaving. They're saying a lot of things, but they're not leaving, okay? They're not. They're staying here because deep down inside, they like the way things are. And when they change it to something different, they're not going to like it. I bet you $1 million they won't like it.
Areas of life because they are Asian. So imagine you are an Asian born in America and everything around you is telling you white people are better than you. And you are inferior for being Asian. When you take all that into consideration, you can start to understand why so many Asians in the West develop some level of internalized racism and white worship. But we are just getting started.
You know, this is the part I don't understand. And maybe an Asian person out there can explain this to me. Now, black people were enslaved. You know, families separated, whipped, you know, all the stuff and all kind of horrible things that happened to them. Not even throw Native Americans into that pot too. But I don't understand the things about Asians. I mean, most of them grew up in a country. So how are they oppressed? How did they get, you know, they self-esteem dropped so low? You know what I mean? It had to have been something going on in their country for that to happen, not here. You know what I mean? Asians aren't oppressed here. It don't make any sense. They didn't go through all that kind of stuff black people went through. You know what I mean? It just didn't happen. A lot of their parents or their grandparents came from another country. You know, if any oppression that was happening, it was happening in their country. It won't happen in here. That's the reason why they left their country to come here. So they can have certain type of freedoms. But then, you know what? Like I say, things happen. People start to get into this weird state of mind when all of a sudden they want to change their whole identities and stuff, right? You know what I mean? Instead of just accepting who they are, how they were born or whatever, right? It is what it is. Like I said, you can do whatever you want. That's your right. But I'm just saying, man, life would just be easier, man. I was born what I am. Am I perfect? No, not at all. It's some things that I could improve that probably could make my life easier, but you know, why? This is who I am. And if somebody can't accept me who I am, then maybe I don't need to be in that person's life. You know what I mean? It's stuff. So, but you know, if you Asian, you're going to be Asian until you die. It's not going to change. I don't care how many plastic surgeries you get. So this is something else going on, because that's probably the difference with the situation, with his, as he say, internalized racism, whatever he's talking about. That's the difference. You know what I mean? At least I can at least point out the oppression that black people went through at a certain point here. But most Asian people didn't go through this stuff. I mean, yeah, there was some that came here and they worked them to death, like the railroads and all this other stuff, right? Treated them like crap, yeah. But for some reason, it's like it was something here that they wanted, because they could have stayed in their own country. They didn't have to, Chinese people didn't have to come here. But something was happening in their country that they preferred to be here, even under these extreme circumstances. It was a lot better, because they could have anytime went back to their own country if they wanted to, but they didn't. You know what I'm saying? So like I said, I feel like sometimes they're just looking for reasons to explain why all of a sudden a lot of these Asians are talking about they don't want to be Asian no more. And I think I think it's just the pressures of expectations. I think they just want to be who they want to be. You know, they want to, like I say, date whoever they want, go to places, whatever they want, not use chopsticks, use forks, something different. You know what I mean? I don't think it's the fact that they hate being Asian. I really don't think so. It might come out like that. It might look like that. But I really don't think that's the problem. I think it's more about pressure.
White worship and self-hatred can be intergenerational, passed down from parents to children.
What do you guys think about Asian boys? Look over there.
My mom told me just like since I was a young girl that not to be with an Asian guy.
Why? Well, actually,
I have no explanation.
Is your dad Caucasian or is he Asian?
My father's white. He's German.
I was a teenager and I was with my mother, and we started talking about guys that I would date, who would I marry. And I remember she said it very matter-of-factly. She was like, yeah, you most likely will marry a white guy.
You know, my family brought...
All right, I think I got an explanation for this as well. I think it's more economic. The parents understand, look, if that white man, and they might be wrong. I mean, we can argue about that, but that's another video. But I think when they say stuff like this to their daughters or sons, I think they think, look, these white people got money. So you need to marry a rich white man, because I don't think they're going to want her to marry a poor white man. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, our black culture been tried so much, so a lot of them ain't trying to sell their kids to black men. And it won't just the white men that do it. It's black men too. It's black people too. We go out there and act ratchet sometimes. You know what I'm saying? So it's both parties. All right. It ain't just the white people. All right. I just want to make that clear. But I think it's more about economics than anything else. It's not like a Chinese man is worse than a white man. I think if the parents knew that she can marry a rich Asian dude in America, that she probably would prefer that. Okay, but while you're in America, you look at the culture and see who might be profiting more, or at least in your mind who think is profiting more, and they can get you into more places, is to hook up with a white person. And that's probably the way they're thinking. I don't think they hate their own culture. I don't think that's it. I really don't. It might seem that way, but I don't think that's it. I think it's more about opportunity and living a good life. You know what I mean? And you're going to if you go to a country, let's just say you are black and you go to a country of Asians, and most of the Asians are rich, you know what I'm saying? Or a good amount of them are rich. As a parent, you're going to want probably your daughter or son to marry an Asian person, because it probably will give them a good life. It doesn't mean you need to hate your blackness. You know what I mean? That has nothing to do with it. I think it's just about opportunity. That's all I'm saying.
Brought me up to be very assimilated. If I see a bad driver that cuts me off, I'll like go, are they Asian? And my reaction was, oh, you're Asian, you can't read.
Like racism, white worship is learned behavior. No one is born thinking white people are superior or I must marry a white person to improve the race. In addition, many Asian immigrants in Western society believe in assimilation. They don't teach their children anything about their Asian heritage and culture. And when Asian parents make that mistake, you end up with young nations who have no connection with their Asian background, yet will still face all the challenges of being Asian in Western society. Because this...
You know, one thing I learned about white people, they're pretty fragile. They are. I remember when I talk to white people, I talk to white people like I talk to black people, okay? And black people don't get so offended when the way I talk to them, because sometimes I can be a little abrasive and too real once in a while. So when I'm talking to white people, I can see the sensitivity sometimes, the fragileness they have when I talk to them like that. You know, but I can't help it. I'm me. You know what I mean? I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do, right? I'm talking to you the way I talk to everybody. So sometimes they little on the fragile end because they got a lot of stuff going on too. They got, you know, they think about the way they look or the way they dress or, you know, the fact that they ain't got no friends or they lonely and whatever, right? Cause they do more plastic surgery than anybody else. Okay. So come on. So I'm just saying that, you know, all this white worship thing I think is baloney. I just think it's baloney. I think people thinking white people are all this, and then when you actually deal with white people, you come to find out they're not. You know what I mean? I think that's what it is. I think a lot of these, for example, I think a lot of these pro-blacks that don't really deal with white people, they go to all these black colleges and, you know, only hang around black people and all that kind of stuff. So they got this like white worship thing going on. And I think it's the same thing with Asians. They spend more time with Asian people, but then they see these white people and they think all these white people are so fantastic. If only I could be white, something like that. Me, I spend time with whoever. Whoever wants to spend time with me, I don't got a problem with it. As long as we cool, I can have no issues. So I've been around a lot of white people, okay? And they just as fragile as the next person. It's nothing special about white people at all. And there's nothing special about black people or Asian people. Now, with social media, you're starting to see more of that. So it's these people that keep themselves in a bubble that's walking around thinking another race is better than theirs. And yeah, if you want to call it, you know, internal racism or whatever, call it whatever you want. I know it's descriptive. I get it. You know what I'm saying? But it's like, get out, man. Start talking to these races. Start talking to white people. Okay, find out what they really like. And then you go start to realize, they ain't too much different from us. They got their faults, they got their insecurities, just like everybody else. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I'm saying about that.
Discrimination, stereotyping, and hate crimes against Asians are about race, not culture.
Go back to whatever Asian country you belong in.
Asian piece of
This ultimately leads to white worship and internalized racism. Your nationality.
Now, I didn't realize this at first, but I'm starting to believe this is a propaganda video. I didn't realize this at first. Because a lot of his assumptions, I think, is based off of liberal talking points and all the other stuff, right? But I still enjoy the exploration into this. You know, it still opens the door to what's going on in the Asian community. It doesn't mean that this is not happening. It's his descriptive of what's going on. I just, in some ways, disagree. Not completely disagree, but in some ways I do disagree. So, but I can tell this is kind of a propagandist video, because when they start flashing Trump and how terrible he is, he hates Chinese people and stuff like that, then I knew for sure, like, okay, this is a propaganda video, okay? But either way, I still think we can learn from it and understand what's going on, because, like I say, I grew up with black people. We went back and forth about white people and stuff like that. I noticed that the people that hated white people the most were the people that wanted to be white, or at the least wanted to have what white people had, or what they believed white people had. You know what I mean? But everybody else is just living their lives, didn't care that much. I don't need to be Elon Musk. You know what I'm saying? As long as I can make a living for myself and I can be happy, that's all I care about. I don't need to have everything white people have. I just don't need it. You know, just give me what I earn. If I can, am I able to buy a house? Let me buy a house. If I'm able to live in peace, let me live in peace. I don't need to, be, looked up as something that I'm not. And I think it's a lot of pressure that goes towards white people, because for some reason, you're supposed to have these expectations of white people. Then you meet them and then you realize that, it didn't exist. Because, like I say, I grew up in a predominantly black neighborhood, and I really didn't, deal with white people until I went to high school. And then I was thinking, these blonde haired, blue eyed, and all these people walking around, right? It was a weird experience. But I was curious, and that's the thing about it. I was really curious about them. because I didn't know them that well, right? I mean, I came during the time I was in school. I came across a few white people that I was cool with, but to have large groups of them and the way they acted, that was a different thing for me. So I found it fascinating. So I got to know them, and guess what? They talked about the same crap we did. You know, music. You know, dealing with their parents. The fact that they got a big feet or whatever the situation is, the insecurities, same old stuff. To the point, by the time I end up leaving high school, man, I realized white people ain't no different than anybody else. They ain't no different than anybody else. It's the people that isolate themselves from other cultures might be saying, oh, Asians are superior, or white people are superior. No, nobody is. Nobody. Okay? And I'm gonna end this video here because, like I said, I think this is more of a propagandist kind of video. He's trying to make it seem like it's white people's fault that Asians hate themselves, and I'm not saying it is. White people gonna do what they're gonna do. They want money, they want power, whatever. Who doesn't? Okay, black people want it, Asians want it, everybody want it. You let a culture run a country, they're gonna dominate. Who dominates China? Oh, Chinese people. Who dominate Japan? Oh, Japanese people do. Who dominate America? White people do mostly. Because they built most of this stuff. At least they put out the blueprint of what they wanted America to be like. And obviously other cultures agreed because they came here. And they didn't leave. They didn't come in and say, oh, I don't like this. I'm going back to China. No, they stayed. Matter of fact, they still crossing borders to get here. Okay, so this guy, and I'm not saying anything bad about him, I don't know him, but it seems this guy is trying to make it seem like it's white people's fault, the reason why Asians are going through what they're going through. It has to be. Got to be them. It got to be the fact that during World War II or World War I, when they put Asians in these camps, that must have something to do with the fact of Asians hating themselves. Or they had to, they treated them like crap. They made them wash dishes and work on the railroad. Yes, that must be it. That must be the reason why Asians hate themselves. Or it's the movies. That's what it is. That is what make them hate themselves, because it's mostly white people in these movies. So that's the reason why you hate yourself. I watch white movies, man. I will hate myself over it. It's something else. Something else. And I think it's more the pressure or expectations people have with Asians. Because even though these Asians might be going to colleges and doing better than anybody else, that doesn't mean they're happy. Even though they're very dedicated to their parents and they like to stick to their own communities, that doesn't mean this is something they want. It is not always another race's fault for what's going on in your own community. Try to address what's going on in your own community before you start going outside of that. That's all I'm saying. And I say that to black people too, man. We got our own issues. Maybe we should address that first. And then we can talk about what white people might or might not be doing to us. And I think it's the same thing with the Asian culture too. Whatever they're going through, I think it's something else. I don't think it really even has anything to do with white people, honestly. I think it's something going on in their culture that they need to deal with. And that's all cultures. But that's just my opinion. You can disagree or agree. Leave it in the comment if you agree or disagree. I would love to hear from you, okay? All right. I really appreciate all of you coming by. Thanks again. This is T and Peace.
So I'll tell the kids if someone's driving really slowly or just cutting out, to say, oh, bloody Asian drivers,
Asian culture is just super patriarchal and misogynistic. Asian culture is just not fun.
So I'm half Chinese, I'm half Scottish.
Yeah?
But luckily for me, I'm half Scottish below the waist.